welcome back everyone. Thank you for being here. So welcome to the endless possibilities of sensory work for artists, which is a panel welcoming artists here to talk about the work that they do and why. I'll introduce our panel one by one and they'll audio describe themselves. So next to me we have Ellie Griffiths, who's the artistic director of Oily Cart, and she joins us to discuss her practice working with people with learning disabilities. Oily Cart create a highly crafted interactive sensory theatre that tours the UK and internationally. Do you want to audio describe yourself?
Hello. I'm Ellie. I'm a white woman with brown hair and very pale skin, and I'm wearing a cardigan and a green dress, and I've got a big tummy with a baby inside it.
Amazing. And next to her we have JoAnne Haines, who joins us from Mind the Gap in Bradford, and she's going to discuss her show Dancing with Colours, which toured in 2022. JoAnne Haines is a learning disabled artist, performer and facilitator, performing professionally since 2011.
Hi, I have red hair, short, pale skin and blue eyes and a blue dungarees with a red love art top and on my black shoes and gorilla socks on.
Amazing. And with JoAnne today, we have Jess Boys, who is the artist and partnerships producer at Mind the Gap. So she works closely with the company's team of learning disabled artists and has been working with JoAnne since 2017.
Hi, I'm Jess. I'm a big white woman with long brown hair and I'm wearing stompy boots and a brown dress.
And next to her we have Jeremy Harrison, who's an artist, researcher and teacher. His work intersects music and theatre, and he's a programme director at Bruford College for the MAs in acting, musicianship and also theatre for young audiences. And he manages the SEND provision for Playground, which he will, I'm sure, tell you a little bit about as we go through. So thank you for joining us, lovely panel. We'll hit off with our first question, which is why are you as an artist drawn to making sensory theatre? I don't know if anyone has a burning desire to start. Why are you drawn to sensory theatre? What is it about it?
Sensory theatre helps me express my feelings and keeps me calm, and definitely through lockdown it helped me with my mental health and kept me from going insane.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to see more of.
Amazing. And is that why you made the show Dancing with Colours?
Yes.
When did you make that show?
Oh, I made that show 2018.
Great.
Yeah.
And from what you've told me about the show as well, it's been through lots of different iterations, hasn't it?
Yeah, it went from like a workshop into an online workshop and then into now a big performance.
Amazing.
With 3 other like audience planters and a musician. Audience planter is where you get somebody sat in the audience that will come out and join you and get the audience up on their feet too.
Why did you choose to have audience planners in the show?
Because I would like to get the audience interacted with the shows.
Amazing.
That's why.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the show, JoAnne?
Yeah. Dancing with Colours is a movement and with paint, and it's like uses a sense. It's got music, a live musician called Henry, and I had to interview the musicians. I didn't just have one musician, I had to interview three musicians and loads of dancers, and it was a very long day and very difficult the first time interviewing musicians and the audience planters too. And it toured just in Bruford and Leeds. Interplay? No. In Bradford.
Not yet. I love that. Not yet.
Yeah, not here yet. Not here yet. I'm hoping to come. I'm hoping to tour it again soon. I mean, just getting some more funding. Looking for some more funding.
Amazing. Great. And Jeremy, Ellie, is there a particular thing about sensory theatre that's drawn you to working in this sector?
I actually agree. I think I don't think I fully realised it until the pandemic, but I think that it's really good for my mental health. I think being in your body, not your head. As someone who loves words and can get stuck in your head, I think I found it the most relaxing thing ever to perform and be around. The sort of being in flow and in your body, and the title Painting with Colours, I think, is how it feels to make sensory theatre, because it's like, rather than just having these two colours of like words, and you get like a little bit of sound design if you're lucky as a director, suddenly you're like, whoa, look at my palette, I've got like, you know, I think there's research is like 33 senses. You've got all these different colours that you can dance with and play with, and that for me makes it feel really like an expanded language that you get to dance around in, and it is with your whole body. And I think that's the bit of it that I just get really addicted to and like really, really, really love. I think I was in a rehearsal room a few years ago for a more standard play, and I realised, I was like, oh, I hadn't realised how far I'd gone away from that. I was like, I don't recognise any of these things. It felt to me so restricted. I was like, God, have we only got words? I was like, oh, is that it? And it was a really brilliant piece of work, but I was like, nah, I want to play a bit more freely for myself.
Amazing, thanks, Ellie.
Yeah, well, I think that really resonates with me. And I guess the journey towards sensory theatre has been quite a long one. And if I think back to when I first graduated from drama school, I think I felt like I had to become something to be allowed to be in theatre, if that makes sense. You know, I had to learn the vocabulary of theatre and meet the right people and talk the right way. You know, in those days we were even trained to speak differently, you know, to speak with RP. And then, yeah, as I've gotten older, you know, I remember somebody saying to me once, people don't change, they just become more their authentic selves as time goes on, as you get to know them. And I feel like that's what's happened. I've found sensory theatre because it's a space, that felt most comfortable to me. I'm a musician and also an actor, and that was difficult. You know, how do you kind of navigate those two identities? So making work that integrates live music was part of my journey. And once you start to do that, you realise that the language of music is as complex and beautiful as words. So how do you create a world where that hierarchy, which is what happens, I'm familiar quite often as people who make music for theatre, we hear this word underscore, you know, and that suggests a hierarchy, you know, that the music is somehow underneath supporting the words. And I think part of my journey has been to address that balance and say, actually, when I'm making music or when people are making music in the shows that I've been a part of, the music is speaking. It's foregrounded, you know, it's not underscoring, it's actually speaking. It doesn't need words necessarily. So I think that journey has kind of mirrored the same journey that I've made as a theatre practitioner, and suddenly realising, look, there's all sorts of other senses as well that you can bring along. That's been it. And I've written some notes to make sure I didn't ramble too much. And there's just one I'll read, which is, you know, I said, multisensory theatre it's the liveness of it. I think that I really like, you know, making an argument for live theatre rather than recorded media, you know, making an argument for getting audiences out of their living rooms and into spaces together. Feels like we have to kind of celebrate the liveness of it, and there's nothing, it seems to me, more live than the sensory theatre world. And yeah, the idea of being with rather than performing to, I also realised made me feel much more comfortable. I mean, I feel ridiculously nervous sitting up here again. It's been a while since I've acted or performed, and I realise I'd much rather be in there with you than sitting up here being watched, and maybe that says something as well.
Go on, Jeremy, do a dance.
Yeah, I'll sing you a song.
There was something in the planning of today of us trying to work out how we capture that interaction and that liveness of what is going on, and we will have a few interactive activities throughout the day, but I think this does feel very alien to a lot of us working in this way, because our audiences are it's much more common that we would be up close with our audience, responding and reacting to how they are taking the show. So yeah, give us grace today. This is not what we normally do. But yeah, the next question that we'd asked about was a sensory show that you're most proud of, or a sensory project that you're most proud of. And we've heard a little bit about Dancing with Colours, JoAnne, but I don't know if you want to tell us any more about that project and what you're proud of about it.
Yeah, the audiences was mixed, where we had some kids that came to do the rehearsal, workshop that I did. Did a workshop onside it as well, and one little boy came back with goggles on and full of paint. I'm like, yeah, I think I've seen you before, but not like that. And his mum said to me, he loves it so much he wants to come back. And the feedback were that they never experienced it like that before, and they would like to do more. So I thought that's why I would like to do more.
That's amazing feedback, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone to immediately want to come back and experience
And
it
that's
again.
why that little boy came back. A few other people came back. Some from mine, they got like Toby Joy. She loved it so much. She came to where was it, in Bruford? Yeah, the place. It's like a community centre in Bruford, and she came back there, and it was like, I definitely done it to work with them. They like helped me to see how the audience react, and then they came back to see it again.
Amazing.
With their parents, and their parents loved it too.
Great.
And one person said that their son is autistic, and they struggled, and they enjoyed the sensory, and it wasn't overwhelming. We had a little breakout room where they could go and watch the show, and they can do like colouring in or painting in their own little way if they needed to have some space. So I give them a choice, and they can watch it from the live stream.
And that audience access was really exciting.
Yeah, it wasn't a challenge for me. It was really exciting.
That is such a lovely picture that you're painting of your work. The sensory elements to the show,
Yeah.
am I right in thinking that there's paint?
Yeah, there were paint, music. Unfortunately, there wasn't taste.
Unless you put the paint in your mouth, but...
Well, we had a few people putting paint sticks in their mouth, which...
That's taste.
Not really, not what we wanted to do. But if it... Lots of touch and hearing and speaking out if they need you to speak.
Yeah.
Let them speak out or make noise.
The pictures make it look like the messiest show you'll ever go to.
Yeah, and
it
one of
looks
the audience
amazing.
said, put it in your hair. So I ended up putting it in my hair. I ended up just getting it all over my body apart from my chin, because I did experiment where I put it all on my face, but because I didn't realise, I thought of growing out of face paint, allergic to it. I haven't.
Oh.
So I did not put it near my chin because I came out of the rash.
Nightmare.
Luckily I got rid of it quite quickly.
Good.
I got some allergy cream which my nephew's.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you sorted that
I
out.
nicked it out of my nephew. My mum gave me it so she knew.
I think, do you know what? It's all the learning that comes with making sensory shows, isn't it?
She helped me
All
out
the
one day
learning.
because I came home and she went, what are you doing? Like, I put paint on my face. And she went, oh, JoAnne.
Do you know what? I think we can all relate to our families going, what's your job? Like, what is it that you do? Amazing. Thank you so much, JoAnne, for sharing that. Ellie, do you have a project that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think there's always something in each project that you're really proud of, but the one that stands out to me because it felt the most complete is a piece called Sound Symphony that started as a conversation on a long train from London to Aberdeen and with my friend, and it was we bumped into each other, and he was doing research with autistic young people about the ways in which he relates to music as a free jazz experimental musician, and the ways that he was finding young autistic people relate to music and sound, that they're both of them, there were some shared fascinations and really authentic shared points of interest, and he'd sort of find this new audience for his work that also didn't have a bias towards lyrics or melody, so they could just have this great time together. And similar to what Jeremy was saying, I'd observed in shows that lots of young people were most interested in the source of sound, more sometimes than the human story. So I was like, I want to make a show where like the source of sound is like the main character. So what I enjoyed about it was the process with this research element to it, and then getting loads of incredible experimental musicians in the room like Shiori that's here today, just like jamming with these young people with music, and then this becoming the basis of a show that could be, for me, it was a really it just felt like a really genuine shared point of interest. Like the stuff that the young people were into and the stuff we were going into was stuff that I was just so fascinated by and into as well, that we found this place we could all be like, yeah, deep sound, and could just really celebrate that. And then what I loved as a full sort of circle and what made it feel complete is that from the live show touring, I tried to design a show that was designed to be hijacked by the audience, and it did. Sometimes to a point where you were like, is that okay? But and I loved it. And in one performance, an audience member brought a violin with her, and she's a teenager who communicates through body language mainly, and then some words. And she played violin the whole way through the show, to the point where one of my friends said, "Oh, I thought she was one of the actors. I thought she was one of the cast." And so we were then able to make a film of like a film version of the show, which was a different piece of work. It was like an at-home version, which I loved because you got to just stay in the imaginary world for several kind of years, finding different dimensions to it. And she and some other young artists were in the film and kind of stole the show, so it felt like the show really and truly had been hijacked, and they became the stars of it. And for me that felt like a really complete, ultimate like process, having lived it for several years and found all the different dimensions to it.
It's so interesting to hear the sort of origins of projects as well, and hear about how they've grown over time, because you've both made beautiful sensory shows but from completely different places. JoAnne, you told us your origin story. Do you remember when you talked to me about how Dancing with Colours started as a conversation? Can you remember who you were talking to?
Yeah, I talked to my best friend Paul Wilshaw.
Who's here?
He's actually here somewhere. Over there. Yeah, there he is. You can hear him. We were just talking over break time and dinner time, and he said, "You're a good dancer, you're good at art, why don't you make a show?" I'm like, oh, yeah. I didn't think I was. And then I talked to Jess, who's my producer at Mind the Gap, and that's how it became. It was colourful first. We named it Colourful, the first one. Then we made it Colourful Online for the second one, and now Dancing with Colours for the third one. Last one. Well,
really keen to bring your facilitation.
I was really keen to bring facilitation. I can't say the word. It's a difficult word.
Silly word, really.
Yeah. Audience interaction. That's a better word for me. To get the audience interact and get me challenge myself.
Yeah. Starts with this conversation with the producer,
Yeah.
and then it grows, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
one skill, another skill, and drawing them all together.
And I always listen to the audience, because, for example, when I did the workshop, we had a group of schools who was, one child was struggling with lots of noise, lots of things. I could see he was having a moment, they were having a really bad moment. I said, let's not have sound, let's just have the relaxing music. And just cut this. We had a sound bit which was like Jaws music, like sound effects, which we couldn't interact with. But I thought, let's not do that. that person was not having a great time. I observe the audience, how they're feeling, and if it's going on too long, I'll just keep it and cut out the other bits.
And that's amazing. That's coming back to the liveness that Jeremy's talking about, isn't it? In what other theatre, what other sector of theatre could you really take, well, we'll just take that out. We'll just not do that today because that audience member doesn't need it.
Yeah.
They get to be that live and to respond to people. That's brilliant. Amazing. Do you want to tell us about a project, Jeremy? You got one?
Yeah. I mean, the question you asked us was about, which show we were most proud of, and I suppose that initially triggered the thought of pride and how ugly that might seem. You know what I mean? I find that a hard concept in a way. So I suppose I kind of moved the question in my head to the one I feel most connected with, and again, it became very hard to choose. But the work I'm doing with Playground, which we were lucky enough to become a national portfolio organisation after only a couple of years of kind of developing things, largely to do with just the richness of the project that works right across Kent. It started in libraries and now we work in children's centres and special schools and all sorts of settings with early years audiences, people of 5 and under. And I think the biggest element of pride or feeling fortunate that I get from that work is the consistency. Having worked in settings where you're often visiting a school or visiting an audience for a one-off, suddenly I'm offered an opportunity to work within the community that I live every week with the same people, sometimes with single, individual young people and their primary carers, sometimes with a family. And I think that's what's become the most exciting thing, is just to be with the same person each week and for the journey to deepen, and particularly with the audiences and the young people that we're working with. I mean, I think it's true of everybody, it's true of me, but particularly true of some of these young people, having time to just meet the same person each week and for things to gently unfold. And there's a big buzzword now, isn't there, in the sector, which is co-creation. And I feel like this approach really allows co-creation to exist. If you're coming back each week, you're meeting the same young person, and there's their, either their sibling or their parent or their primary carer with them. You're building a relationship through art and through making work together. So I feel hugely fortunate and privileged to be sharing a space with these people every week. Some extraordinary things have happened as a result of that. We worked with one family in Sittingbourne every week for 2 sort of terms, so I don't know what that is, about 3 or 4 months, and a very reluctant, shy. The work was targeting the younger brother, but it was the older daughter actually who ended up being the most withdrawn and shy, and just gently noticing what she was interested in over the course of several weeks. She was clearly musical, she loved to draw. In fact, she'd often come with drawings and doodles all over her arms, and so we just started to sort of pick up what she was doing, and we started to trace and then project her drawings on the wall behind her, and then watching her notice that. And I work with live looping and recording music and building musical worlds, in the moment. So starting to just record gently the things that she was doing on some of the instruments we brought in the room, and then creating loops out of them until these whole worlds started to emerge that came from her imagination. And that just felt really exciting, creatively stimulating, but also, beautiful, really humanly beautiful to be in a space that's, a complete manifestation in a whole room of this family's imagination, and watching that relationship build and truly understanding the power of art. We talk about it all the time, but to witness that and to be privileged enough to spend time and see that unfold in front of you. I guess I am proud of that. But it's more than that, it's just sort of making sense of who we are as artists. And I think it's taken me quite a long time to work out. And maybe that's where I should stop, because that's probably the thing I ought to be most proud of, is I feel like eventually, after many years, I worked out what my purpose was, if you know what I mean, as an artist. And I feel very fortunate. So that's that story.
That's a brilliant story. Thank you so much. Our next question is about, you've covered it all so beautifully already, so you might not have anything to add, but what the most exciting thing is about working in this way. What is that? What's the fire that makes you excited to make the next project or to drive the next thing forward? Go on, JoAnne. I saw the mic move.
I want to challenge what people think and how they react. Everybody can be an artist. That's what I'm trying to get out there. Don't be scared. Anyone could be an artist. Do art, make art, be themselves, perform, dance, make music. I'm not really a singer, but I give it a shot now and again. not my strongest key, but I try. So I try things that I not normally do.
Love that, JoAnne. And that's an honour for your audience to get to come in and feel that from you and go, we're making art here together.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it helps me get de-stressed. And it definitely helped me a lot.
And now you're passing that on to other people.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Thanks, JoAnne. Ellie, have you got one?
I think that what I find exciting about it as an art form is that it's so new, like it's only been going just over 40 years, so it feels like there's this little bit of fenced off land that's been discovered and everyone's like, oh yeah, we know what that is. But what they don't see is there's like this huge landscape beyond it, which is the potential of it, which is why I always find it hilarious and deeply uncomfortable when people talk about experts, because it's like every project feels like stepping into that unknown forest and tripping and falling and finding your path and going, oh no, it's not that way, is it this way? Oh my God, what's over there? And I find that so like exhilarating. To have so few references is difficult, but also such a joy, because your imagination can go anywhere. And I really, I find that equally just like challenging and inspiring, and I love following. It's like you're following a compass, not a map. Whereas theatre, and I love the way that it kind of, theatre in its traditional sense can feel like an art form that it can feel elitist, and at its worst it can feel dead. And I love that sensory theatre just asks these beautiful questions of it, and it kind of breaks it all up. So it just, everything's like disrupted and like pew, pew, pew. And then you follow the desire lines of the audience to put it back together again in a different pattern, and then these new patterns emerge. And I just could live off that. I find that like really exciting, and that mix of art and activism is like, I think that's, you can spend a few careers in that and not get bored.
For sure. One thing that I think would be so important to say from that as well is that not all the voices of sensory theatre are here. Not everybody that is making this work is here. There's also people making this work that might not identify it as sensory theatre. So there's so much across the country happening. And we'll introduce you to an activity that's going to show us about that after this panel. What's most exciting for you, Jeremy?
Well, I think it's exactly what Jo and Ellie have been talking about, really, and particularly that last point of Ellie's, that it's the, I was going to say the unknown. I think it's the challenge, personally, of how do you create something that is scaffolded enough, has got enough shape that you can sort of repeat it, and that there are things that you can do each time that are similar, so you can call it a thing. But then once you start doing it, it changes. It completely changes because one child does this, or suddenly someone asks you to put the paint in your hair, and then you do. So I think that's the thing. I just find it the most fascinating ever. Forever, it fulfills your curiosity and artistic creativity every time. Meeting these young people, I work predominantly with young people, so it's a kind of young people's thing for me, and very young people often. So how do I meet their eyes, meet their kind of imaginations, see what they've got to offer as a result of whatever stimulus we've brought to them, and then extend that and develop that and have that kind of conversation, and that's just fascinating. And I guess one last thing, because I must say this, Jill Briggs in the audience, and one thing I never thought would happen, which continues to fascinate me, is I have a commission through Rose Bruford, working with the Primary Shakespeare Company, and the challenge is, how can you share a Shakespeare play with a special school and everybody in that special school? So the first thing we do at the beginning of every year is take a Shakespeare play and create a sensory show that kind of unlocks themes and ideas of that play. So the scale of that, and we have 30 actor musician students from Rose Bruford to play with. So bringing a force like that, a massive scale, 30 instrumentalists into a special school to meet those audiences is another fascinating thing. And this year it was Julius Caesar. So go figure that one. So that keeps me coming back as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We've got a few minutes to open out to the audience if anyone has any questions for our panel that they are interested in, whether it's connected to the projects that they've talked about or something else. Corin, yeah. Can I bring you?
I just wanted to ask, do you think there's scope for mixing sensory theatre in a more traditional setting as well, and have a combination of two things that I love?
That's a great question. Thanks, Corin. So do you think there's potential to mix sensory practice with traditional theatre?
I think you could. There's nothing impossible. Just give it a try.
Should we do it?
Yeah. If you do a touch tour before you go into the theatre, maybe just let the audience come in to the traditional way.
Yeah. We can rewrite the rules as well. That's something that
Yes.
happens. And there are, Natalie Kierkos is doing brilliant things at the Playhouse to make their traditional shows more accessible, and starting with engagement sessions beforehand to go, here's some sensory joy before you go in so that you understand the story more when you get inside. So there are people that are sort of treading that line. Maybe there's a whole research project in that. How do we do that?
Yeah, I just think, with my hat on as somebody who works in the drama school sector, I think there's also something about training artists which needs to be addressed. This fourth wall idea, the predominant methodology for actors and performers tends to be, introspective. What's my character want? What's the relationship between me and the other characters, the world of the play? And it just amazed me when I first came to Rose Bruford, coming from some of the work that I've been doing, that there wasn't more consideration of the audience and of participation and engagement. And in a way, there's almost, it's a hierarchy thing, isn't it? If the show involves audience participation, it's probably not good art. There's that kind of thought. Yes,
It's not the room, Jeremy.
So, once you say, look, our work is going to include our audience in a really participatory way, the way you train your performers and your makers has got to shift. And, I think we're doing a bit of that at Rose Bruford. I think that's happening on more progressive courses around the country. But I think until that shift happens completely, there's a generation of performers coming out who maybe just can't see the audience.
Yeah.
That really good point. Another question just here in the front.
Well, it wasn't a question, it was just kind of going on from that. It's kind of like educating people en masse that just because something's sensory doesn't mean it's just for one group of people. Just because something's accessible doesn't mean say it's just for that group of people. It's art, it's theatre, it's culture, and so it's about opening those boundaries and just saying this is just another way of doing it, and that's what we're doing. So just come and experience it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I really feel strongly about breaking down this division of them and us, and this being a language that is disabled specific, which I find really troubling and problematic. I think that sensory theatre is the closest we'll get to like a universal language and a theatre language, and I think that that's what really excites me about the potential of it, is creating spaces. The more and more that does go into those different mainstream environments and different ways of making and different things, the more we just make spaces that everyone can be with each other, although they have different ways of being in the world, and that feels a great thing to aim for. in lots of different ways.
All it is.
It's about stories. You're so right. And on that note, can we give our panel a lovely round of applause? Thank you so much for talking. We have got 10 minutes now to have a quick breather, quick break. And at 12 o'clock, there's the opportunity to have the sensory session with Natalie outside. So sign up or head along at 12 to see that. We also have an interactive activity outside that we would love you to add to throughout the day, and this would be a good opportunity to do it. There's maps up of the UK and Ireland, and we would love people to put sensory companies that they know that are making great work across the country that we might not know about or that might not be on there already, and tie those to the map of those companies. There is also a pin board for people that are new to the scene to write a sensory memory from either your childhood or from recently that you feel has really spoken to you, and put that on the pin board outside. We'd love to read through them at the end and go, what sensory joy has happened in this room? Does that sound all right? Great. Right, have a lovely break, and we'll see you back at 12 in here for a panel or out there for some sensory joy.